Thank you for joining us. You're watching a career success video from Computer Coach. Computer Coach is a Tampa-based computer training center specializing in helping IT and business professionals add on the skills they need to reach their desired career goals. If you are job searching, in transition, or are looking for guidance, please feel free to reach out to us at www.computercoach.com. Now, let's get started.
Hello and welcome to Salary Negotiations. I'm super excited about this topic, and I'm guessing the fact that you're here means you are too. My name is Cassandra Perez. I'm the Senior Career Strategist at Computer Coach IT Training Center in Tampa, Florida, and I specialize in career coaching and upskilling for IT and business professionals. I have over 10 years of experience helping individuals start or advance their careers in IT and tech-adjacent roles. One of the topics I've noticed as a pain point for many professionals is salary negotiations. It seems to be one of those things that no matter what level you're at in your career is still daunting. But it doesn't have to be, so let's get started. Today we're going to discuss several aspects of the salary negotiations process, including how to prepare for negotiations, understanding what's negotiable, negotiating salaries while unemployed, negotiating promotions and raises, managing counteroffers, and how to close negotiations. Eisenhower once said, "In preparing for battle, I have always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable." How does that apply to salary negotiations? Well, his point was, plans may never go the way we think they will, but having one always allows you the flexibility to strategically pivot when the situation calls for it. Simply put, having a plan will make you more confident, well-prepared, and gives you the ability to adapt as necessary. So how do we make a plan? When it comes to planning for salary negotiations, whether you're a job seeker or looking for career advancement, the burden of knowledge is on you. You've got to do the work to understand what the market will support for the roles you're pursuing. You also need to remember that during any negotiation, you are an equal at the table. So many professionals feel like the employer has the upper hand because they're the ones paying you. That is not the truth, nor can you afford to have that mindset. You are providing a service to them, filling a gap, solving a problem, and you should be compensated for that service fairly. But first, you have to have a realistic understanding of what your personal needs are. The first step in preparing to negotiate salaries is to be completely real with yourself about what your household or family needs are. This seems like a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised at how many of my clients don't know what their weekly, monthly, or annual expenses are, and that's a scary place to be when you're thinking about future salaries. There's many reasons for this, right? Maybe your spouse manages the bills. Maybe you've always earned more than you spend, so you never really worried about it. But if you don't know what your expenses are, you're arbitrarily picking a salary that you're happy with without having all the facts. Take an afternoon to sit down, map out all your bills and expenses, talk to your family and take into account upcoming trips, vacations, educational expenses, camps or sporting programs for your children, your spouse's income. Everything matters here. Now you know the bare minimum you can afford to accept. Now I want to be clear. Your household expenses and what the market supports for your role may be completely different. I'm not suggesting that if your house can survive off of a $25,000 a year salary, that you settle for a $25,000 salary. There are many other factors to consider. But again, if you don't know what you need to live comfortably, you can be setting yourself up for failure. This is my favorite part of planning, the research. There are 5 key areas you want to focus your research on: the market, your role, the industry, your level of experience, and your education. We'll break each one of these down in just a moment, but first, I want to address something. One of my least favorite sayings around this topic is know your worth or know your value. You hear career coaches say it. It's in almost every article you'll read in doing your research. Your friends and family might even say it. I don't like this saying because I don't believe your worth as an individual is tied solely to your professional career. Know your worth is also a very personal concept. I prefer to think in terms of know what the market supports. This is a non-emotional way of undertaking this task. One of the main reasons professionals hate the idea of negotiating is because it's emotional to them. And in many cases, it stops people from negotiating altogether. Once you realize that this is not an emotional decision, you don't have to stress so much about it anymore. And you're going to do your research, so the data will be on your side and you'll have a realistic expectation going into negotiations. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's talk more about research. So again, the key areas we want to focus on are the market, the role, the industry, your experience, and your education. Now we're going to break these up into two categories: within your control and not within your control. Basically, the first three, market, role, and industry, are completely out of your control, right? It is what it is. Your experience and education are within your control to a certain extent, and we'll talk about that more later. But for now, let's focus on the things we can't control. Market research. Again, it's important to remember you are worth whatever other people in your field are worth. Doesn't matter how much you made at your first job, nor does it matter what your last salary was. You have a market value, just like your house or your car has a market value. You're worth whatever other people with your background, credentials, schooling, skills, and zip code are being paid to do the same job. So how do you figure that number out? There are several online resources to help you. Some of them are payscale.com, glassdoor.com, indeed.com, LinkedIn Insights, salary.com, and there are many others. You can Google it, but it is important to check them all out. Don't just rely on one source. Put the same parameters in each site and look at the low, medium, and high ranges and compare them against other sites. This will help you come up with an average salary. Another resource that's highly underutilized is recruiters. It's their job to know the market rate at any given time. Talk to your recruiters, ask them, what rate are you seeing for my role and my experience? They're going to tell you. What I like about this is their information is probably going to be the most relevant because it's live, real-time information. You can also ask colleagues, even friends and family if they're in related roles or industries. Now, here's where knowing your expenses is really important. If you figured out that your expenses are $45,000 per year, and through your research, you've determined the average salary for your role is $65,000 per year, you now know that you have $20,000 to negotiate. Depending on your tactic, you may be willing to take lower pay to decrease your unemployment time or to be more competitive. Again, I'm not suggesting you settle, but this knowledge is powerful in going into negotiations. Researching your role. Every day it seems like there's a new cool job title for professionals that didn't exist before. Maybe you've heard the job title Unicorn Hunter or Data Wrangler. What does that mean? What do those people actually do? The other day, I saw a job title that said Social Distance Ambassador. I have no idea what that person does in a day. So when you're doing research on your role, make sure you focus on the tasks and skills and not just the job title. You can put project manager into the search criteria, but make sure you read the job descriptions and required skills to ensure what this company is calling a project manager matches your definition or your experience of being a project manager. There are also job titles that are used to describe several roles. Take web developer, for example. Are you focusing on front-end technology, back-end, both? What languages do they expect you to know? Are they actually looking for a user experience researcher? The problem is you won't know until you read the job description and identify the skills and experience they're requiring and match it to your skills and your experience. I often tell my customers, job titles don't always matter. What matters is what your day-to-day life will look like at this company and if that's going to make you happy or not. So be sure to focus on the tasks and experience required when doing research and not so much on the job title itself. Now, industry research is a tricky one because most people have experience in multiple industries or may have a difficult time identifying the industry they're in. For example, maybe you're an IT professional, but most of your experience has been working for hospitals. Are you in the IT industry or the medical industry? The main thing to understand when it comes to industry research is you've got to figure out which industry your experience most closely identifies with. LinkedIn, for example, only allows you to put one industry in your profile. So what industry did you put? If you truly do have extensive experience in one industry over others, you may want to leverage that in your job search or negotiations. Yes, you're an IT professional negotiating for a systems administrator role, but your experience is mostly in the medical field, which gives you a leg up over other candidates that may have experience in finance or marketing. You may have a better understanding of HIPAA laws and privacy regulations or digital records keeping. Figure out what industry you have the most experience in and leverage the industry-specific knowledge you've learned throughout your career. When you're looking at experience, there are a few things you want to pay attention to: the number of years of experience and the level of experience. Are you an expert, intermediate, or beginner for that specific skill? And also look at soft and hard skills. Now remember, we have experience listed as something we can control, so let's explore that. There's nothing you can do about the number of years of experience you have, right? The role requires someone with 5 or more years of experience, and you have 3 years. Fine, it is what it is. But you do have control over the level of experience you have with that skill. For example, if they want someone with 5 years of HTML coding experience and you only have 3, but you know that you've mastered that skill, then you can leverage that. Alternatively, if there are recurring skills you're seeing as requirements and you do not have experience with those, you can start learning them. There are so many resources to help you upskill. You can watch YouTube videos, take an online course, look for opportunities in your current role to get hands-on experience, whatever you need to do to obtain that skill. Now, when it comes to soft versus hard skills, most people tend to focus on the hard skills because they're more tangible, right? Yes, I've built a website, check. But did you know that most employers today say that soft skills are the #1 thing most candidates lack? I know, we spent years mastering all these hard skills and forgot to grow our interpersonal skills along the way. But that's okay, there's no time like the present. Here you see some of the more common soft skills employers are looking for: leadership, mentorship, negotiations, persuasion, and collaboration. These are all things that you probably have experience with, but need to define that. If you don't have experience, again, try to gain it. Offer to lead a project at work or volunteer for a local nonprofit. As you sit down and look at all of your skills, experience, and expertise, you'll identify areas you excel and areas of opportunity. Knowing this in advance will help you boost your confidence and allow you to overcome any potential weaknesses, or at least be prepared to combat them. Okay. So we've done our research, we have a salary range in mind, and we're ready to negotiate. But wait, what are you going to negotiate? Here's where a lot of professionals make the mistake. They focus only on base salary, but literally everything is up for negotiations. Most companies think in terms of total compensation. So what does that mean? Total compensation refers to your total package, both monetary and non-monetary benefits. Let's break down what some of those might be. Monetary negotiables are exactly what they sound like: anything that has a dollar value tied to it. This can be things like your base salary, bonuses, profit sharing, relocation expenses, PTO or paid time off, healthcare benefits, maternity or paternity leave, cell phone and internet reimbursement, tuition assistance, gym memberships, paid parking, association memberships, expense accounts, free in-house childcare, a wardrobe allowance, season tickets to the Bucks. No, really, that's a thing. It's just not that common. Did you know you can even negotiate your exit terms, such as having a guaranteed severance? Yeah, everything is negotiable, and these are all things you need to consider when evaluating an offer. Non-monetary negotiables are employee perks that don't necessarily make you more money, but make your job more enjoyable, such as flexible working schedules, remote working, your job title. This is a big one that's highly under-negotiated. Maybe the company truly can't offer you more money, but you can negotiate adding manager or director to your job title. That's going to automatically increase your marketability for future roles. Other things that might be negotiated are time off to volunteer, sending you to annual conferences, leadership opportunities, review of your salary after 90 days. Think about things you're passionate about or things you want to improve for future marketability and ask. It's important to remember that a lot of companies have specific salary ranges they have to work within, and there's not a lot of wiggle room sometimes. But it's those other non-salary related benefits that companies can negotiate that can ultimately lead to an amazing offer for you. All right, now that we know what we can negotiate, let's talk about how to negotiate while we're unemployed. Let's get a few things out of the way right off the bat. Employer laws are becoming more strict every day, making some historically used recruiting tactics no longer acceptable, such as most states have made it illegal to ask you how much you currently earn or what your last salary was. Your current or previous salary has absolutely no bearing on this salary negotiation. You really shouldn't be asked this question at all, but if you are, here are a few ways you might consider answering. 1. Deflect altogether. You can simply respond with, can you tell me the range you're able to offer for this role? Or what's the budgeted range for this role? A less direct way to respond might be, I'm happy to share my desired salary with you, but I'd like to learn more about the position first. These are my go-to responses because you haven't given them any damaging information and it puts the burden on the interviewer to throw out the first number. That's always going to be the best case scenario. If you're not comfortable being so direct or you get a pushy interviewer, you can also respond with, my previous employer considered employee salaries confidential, so I'm unable to answer your question. However, if you share the salary range for this position, I can confirm that my salary is within that range or not. Again, you still haven't given them a number. If all else fails and you have to answer the question, I recommend something like this. From my initial research, it looks like the salary for this type of role ranges from $70,000 to $85,000, and I can confirm that my salary requirements are within that range. So we're still not telling them how much we used to earn, but we are giving them our range. Right, so the dreaded question, what are your salary expectations? You're going to get asked, and you want to cover this early in the interviewing process. The last thing you want is to interview 5 times and fall in love with the opportunity only to get the job offer and realize it's not even close to your requirements. So let's have this conversation early on and as often as possible during the interview process. Ideally, you'd like to know the salary range from the first phone call. If the recruiter or talent acquisition rep asks you, what are your salary expectations? We're going to answer similar to the previous question. Can you tell me what's the budget for this role? Here, it's important to understand how organizations' hiring processes work. Most companies have a process in place. Let's say the IT department needs a new help desk technician. Typically, the manager of that department is going to fill out a requisition form, submit it to HR, and it'll either be approved or denied. Within that requisition form, the manager has to put the salary range. So if a recruiter is calling you, they 100% should know the salary range for that position. If they don't, that's a huge red flag, and you need to ask more clarifying questions to understand the situation. So the TA asks, what are your salary expectations? You respond with, can you please tell me what's budgeted for this role? And the TA says, honestly, I'm not sure. Now we have to put our detective hats on. Can you tell me if this position has been fully approved to fill? How did this position come to be open? That's a great question because it gives you intel. For example, if the recruiter says, actually, this is a new role within the organization, then that tells you the company is likely growing, they're expanding their team, or something to that effect. It's also good news, and it allows you to take control of salary negotiations because you've probably done more market research than they have. Maybe the previous employee was promoted. Again, great news. Now you know there's growth opportunities and the company promotes from within. Alternatively, if they say, well, the previous employee quit, so we're backfilling the role. That may or may not be a red flag. You need to ask more questions. Do you mind if I ask, why did that person quit? Really peel back the onion and get all the details so you can make an informed decision. Once you have all the information and you've decided you're still interested in the opportunity, you can say, thank you for the information. I am excited to hear more about this opportunity and expectations. When do you expect to have a salary range approved? Based on their response, you can decide how to proceed. Now, let's say you asked what the budget is and they tell you, absolutely, the budget for this role is between 70 and 80,000. Awesome. Now you have the information you need, and if it's within your range, you can simply reply, great, thank you. That is in the range I'm looking for. I'd love to hear more about the role or what the next steps are. If it's not in your range, you can ask if it's negotiable, and then you can make an informed decision on if you want to proceed. Now, assuming the recruiter has asked for your range, you've used all the above tactics, and they haven't told you the budget, but still want your expectations, you're going to have to be prepared to answer that question, and it's 100% should be a range. For example, based on my market research and the skills I bring to this role, my range is between 75,000 and 80,000. Keep your range small, no more than 5 to 10,000 max. Anything smaller than 5,000, and it's not really a range. Anything larger and it's too big of a gap and it's hard to see a middle ground where both parties can agree. At this point, the recruiter will confirm if that's within the range, or they'll tell you it's not, and you can decide if you'd like to move forward. Notice we haven't started any real negotiations, right? We're just making sure we're on the same page so the conversation can continue. At each stage of the interview process, you should be reconfirming salary expectations and start inquiring about benefits, perks, and everything else so that if you're selected for the role, you know exactly what they're already offering and what you can still negotiate into the offer. Negotiating raises and promotions will require a different tactic. First, let's discuss the difference between a raise and a promotion. A raise is an increase in salary, whereas a promotion is when you're given a new role or job title that usually comes with additional responsibility. It's important to know what you want before starting negotiations. Are you simply looking for an increase in salary, or are you looking for upward mobility? Knowing what you hope to get out of negotiations is critical when requesting a raise or a promotion. First, you'll need to do your research and take a few things into consideration. Is the company in a position to give you a raise? That should be the first and most important thing that you look at. There are certain telltale signs within an organization that you should be able to gather enough information to determine, is the company realistically able to give me what I want today? Okay. How long have you been in this role? Has the market value increased for that role since you accepted the position? What achievements have you accomplished? Now is the time to think in terms of I and not we, right? I led this project. I took the initiative. I implemented this process. I'm not telling you to take credit for work you didn't do, but absolutely find those wins within the work that you did do. Also consider, what is your target range for this raise? And what will you do if they say no? Obviously, we want them to say yes, but you need to really consider how you're going to feel, and more importantly, what you're going to do if they say no. Now, if we're targeting a raise and not a promotion, you're going to want to find the original job description of the position you're currently in. This should have been included in your original job offer, or maybe you can find it online. But it's pretty critical that you find the original job description, because what you're going to do now is sit down and go line by line off that job description and compare it to what you actually do in your role. For each task on the job rec that you do, try to identify wins or times you went above and beyond what that task required. Look at the skills that were required on the requisition. Are you utilizing any other skills that weren't part of the original job description? Now you're going to think about all the things you do in a day and write down anything that is not listed in the job description. For example, Maybe you now lead morning stand-up meetings, but that was never part of your responsibility. Write it down. Identify each thing that you do that was not part of your original responsibilities and show how by you doing that task, you're adding value to the team, to the department, or to the overall company, and you deserve to be compensated for it. Now, if the goal is to get a promotion, now you need to not only look at what the market pays for your current role, but what the market pays for the role that you want. Make sure that the things you're doing outside of your current role support you moving into another position. Again, here we need to consider things like, is there a need for this new role within the company? Have a plan for how your current role will continue to get done if you were given the promotion, such as, I'll take the next 2 weeks to get the team brought up to speed on all my projects so they can take them over successfully and there won't be a gap in any work. Try putting your boss's thinking cap on and consider all the benefits and potential side effects of you getting this promotion and have a plan in place to overcome those objections, should there be any. Now that you've done all your research, considered every possible objection, and identified your target raise or promotion, it's time to take your shot. Request a meeting with your boss. The ideal time to schedule the meeting is between 10 and 11 a.m. They've had an opportunity to get settled in for the day, but it's not so far in the day that they're fatigued. Also, scheduling earlier in the week on a Tuesday or Wednesday is best. You may want to consider making a short presentation or having the original job description printed out so you can review what you were hired to do versus what you are actually doing. Having a visual is very powerful. And don't expect an immediate answer. There's almost certainly other people who are involved in the decision-making process, and you need to give your boss time to consider what you've presented, but be sure to ask when you should expect an answer and make sure to follow up if you don't hear back within that time frame. Managing counteroffers. When I talk about counteroffers, I'm really referring to 3 scenarios. Scenario 1 is where you've negotiated a total compensation package for a new role with a new company, and the company has proposed an alternative offer. Scenario 2 is if you've asked for a raise or promotion and your boss presents an alternative offer. And scenario 3 is when you've given your current company notice that you've accepted an outside offer and they give you a counter offer to try and keep you. Now, one of the first things we spoke about today was being real with yourself and having realistic expectations. You absolutely want to shoot for the stars during negotiations. Don't leave anything on the table. But you have to truly know what your deal breakers are so you can objectively consider counteroffers and know when to accept and when to walk away. If you know having the flexibility to be at your son's soccer game is non-negotiable and they come back with working hours that don't allow you to be at that game, then you need to be prepared to walk away. Alternatively, if you've asked for a spending account because it would be nice, but it's not really a necessity, then you can probably accept an offer without it. Now let's talk about scenario number 3. You've accepted an offer from an outside company. You give your boss 2 weeks notice and your boss is completely taken back and wants to do everything in their power to keep you. They'll match the current offer or even better, exceed the current offer. What do? Well, as a general rule of thumb, you'd never accept a counteroffer from your current employer. But why? First of all, you need to consider why you were looking for a new job in the first place. Are you unhappy in your current role? Are you being underpaid, undervalued, or under-incentivized? And even if your employer can match or beat your new offer, is anything else going to change? Are you magically going to be happy all of a sudden? You need to understand all of these things when you've been given a counter offer, because what is the likelihood of those things changing? And that's where your mindset needs to be. However, maybe you've used the tactic of getting an outside offer to help you get a better offer at your current company. All right, that's not unusual, but it does put you in a difficult position. Here's why. The minute you tell your company you've got an offer, they know at minimum that you were looking for a new opportunity. They probably think you're unhappy. you're still looking for new opportunities, and they're probably wondering, is money alone going to make you happy enough to stay? Even if they counteroffer to keep you, there's a high likelihood they're still going to try and replace you rather than take the risk that you're still unhappy and you might leave. It is a lot more cost effective for them to pay you a little more money for 90 days while they find your replacement than it is to backfill your role. So as a general rule, we highly recommend turning down any counteroffer your current employer makes. Now, in scenario 1 and 2, if the counter is within your non-deal breakers, you may want to accept, but not just yet. Closing negotiations. All right, so you've gone back and forth a couple times and the company has made you a final offer. What do? Absolutely nothing. Thank them for the offer and let them know you'll fully review it and get back to them within 48 business hours. And maybe if you know it's time sensitive, it's maybe 24 hours, whatever, but give yourself some time. What? But it's everything I wanted and I don't want to lose the opportunity. I hear you. But remember, this is not an emotional decision and you need to see the final offer in writing. A lot can be promised during negotiations only to find out the company can't deliver on certain items. And that's not to say that they were being dishonest. Maybe the person you were dealing with just didn't know, or maybe policies have changed. For that reason, you absolutely must get the offer letter sent in writing and review it to make sure what you agreed to is what's being offered. If there are any red flags, you need to address them before accepting the offer. Even something as small as a start date. You don't want to burn bridges, so you want to make sure you can give your current employer ample notice. A mix-up on start dates on your offer letter might cause an issue for you. You just need to have all the information before you make your decision. Assuming everything looks good, you should reply in writing to your recruiter with your acceptance to the offer. In that email, thank them for their time and support throughout the interview process and reconfirm your excitement to join the organization. You may want to follow up with a phone call just to personally thank them and accept the offer, but make sure you send it in writing first. And just like that, you've successfully negotiated an offer that you're happy with by doing your research, not making it personal, and not making emotional decisions. Well done. I hope you found this presentation helpful. This is such a huge topic and I could truly talk about it for hours. But please, if you have questions about negotiating offers or about your career, please don't hesitate to contact me. Let's connect. Here's my LinkedIn profile, some of the groups I manage on meetup.com, where you can find more information about Computer Coach on Facebook, and my email address. I look forward to connecting with you.
To learn more about our training programs, classes, and what sets us apart, please visit our website at www.computercoach.com.